Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome back to the second half of the Blackrock Mountain set review. Now this is the class cards, and once again is Dapperatchik joining me for the second half of the set review.
Yeah.
Yep, so basically if you haven't seen the first half, then go see it. I'll put these in a playlist. Because we'll be referencing neutral cards, and if you haven't read those already, you have no idea what we're talking about. But anyway, so starting with the Druid cards, we have 9 mana, 7/8, Volcanic Lumberer, Rare, Taunt, costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. I think this thing's about as useful as a tree on fire can be expected to be.
So, Brian Kibler today called this the second coming of Earth Elemental. And it has pretty much the same weaknesses that Earth Elemental does.
But it's worse.
Namely that it dies to Big Game Hunter and Black Knight. It's very difficult to play. The upside of this card is that you get to play you get to swipe away their board and then develop an Iron Bark Protector basically at the same time.
Whoa.
But is that going to happen often enough to make up for the fact? Especially because one of the big selling points of the Taunt Druid in the times when it's been like the top of the metagame with Ancient of War and stuff is that you get to dodge Big Game Hunter completely. And obviously, this kind of scuppers that ambition.
It does.
And while there's something to be said for layering lots of big taunts, because once they deal with one Ancient of War, they can't deal with the next big taunt. I think Druid just has way better late game options.
I mean, I'm going to put the final nail in the coffin with this card, which, to be fair, I shouldn't need to because it's a tree on fire, which is Ancient of War.
Yeah.
Yeah. Higher health, about as relevant of an attack number, and doesn't die to Big Game Hunter.
I mean, Lumberer is better than what's it called? Iron Bark Protector, I think.
Yay.
But that's not good enough in this day and age.
I don't think it ever was. Anyway, alright. Onto
the chances that you'll play Volcanic Lumberer before 5/10/6
is low. But anyway, now there's a pattern here with all these class cards, is that most classes got one good card, one bad card. Now, for some, neither of them make the cut. For some others, they're both just good enough or good enough to see play. But generally, there's a power level difference between the two cards we were given, with one or two exceptions. Now, Druid of the Flame is supposed to be the good Druid card. It is a 3-mana 2/2 common with choose one, transform into a Magma Rager, a 5/2, or a 2/5. Now, we do actually have the animations for this, I do believe. So if I go back onto the front page, yep, we got these nice animations. We got the Fire Kitty and the Fire Bird. But the problem is that that's about the most interesting thing about this card, because considering we have Spider Tank and Harvest Golem, and we just got a 3/5 conditionally, this is starting to sound less impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, the advantage of Druid of Flame is it gives you the flexibility. Sometimes it's a 5/2, sometimes it's a 2/5, but the problem is neither of those options are consistently to actually be worth it. 2/5 isn't going to trade particularly well against a lot of other 3.
It counters Mirror Entity.
So does Captain's Pack.
Yeah.
Angry Chicken.
Yeah, we need angry chickens and Druid to counter Mirror Entity.
Actually, that's a good point. While we're on the subject of Mirror Entity, the fact that lots of huge minions like Hungry Dragon have been released does
makes
actually
Mirror Entity better. Yeah, it does.
It's very meta dependent.
So, can we just agree that Druid of the Flame is not very good?
Yeah, I mean the problem is that I think it's quite good in Arena because you can do things like play a 5/2 on turn 3 to like mess up your opponent's Yeti and things like that. But in Constructed, every deck has a really good way to deal with both ways of this minion.
You know what's gonna suck? You play it in the mirror match, and then they Keeper of the Grove your Druid of the Flame.
Oh god.
If it's a 2/5, it becomes a 2/2, and if it's a 5/2, it dies. So it's just like saying, no, play.
I don't think it's silencable.
Um, oh yeah, it's not silenceable. Never mind, but it still doesn't matter.
Yeah. So the other thing is like, it's a beast
Is it
with
a
its
beast?
transform. Uh,
Oh, it's a beast. Oh snap. We
so
have beast. That might be
the
relevant in the
the
future.
problem is that Druid beast synergies right now aren't nearly good enough to justify including a somewhat like
It's
edge case card.
it's just a big game hunter target is the synergy.
Yeah, it's just Druid of the Bank.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's a thing.
which
Um,
we were talking in the neutral review about how memes that are just big once you get to that point in the curve aren't really that useful.
yeah, exactly. But anyway, so Druid of the Flame and Volcanic Lumber have followed the tradition of Druid cards, where they never nerfed Innervate, they never nerfed Wild Growth, and they never nerfed Ancient Allure. So now they're trying to slowly push Druid off of the Tier 1 spot by never giving it a good card, and they are failing miserably. It's been close to Tier 1. It's been Tier 2 or higher for the past 2 years. It's just never
Well, I mean,
left.
you know, after GVG and people are getting rank one with Druid decks with literally no
GVG Druid cards, it's just like Shredder
no no
and
no
boom.
people are getting rank one with literally no GVG cards in the deck.
Yeah, and like after Naxxramas, they were just like, we've got Sludge Belcher, and we can use Loatheb. That seems good. And they just, I don't think, it's ridiculous at this point. It's just, that shows how good the base set Druid cards are. That they're
Yeah,
carrying the class, basically. It's insane.
that's the problem. And when you have something like Innovate, something like Wild Growth, something like Ancient Law in the deck, you can't really print new good Druid cards without making the class extremely broken.
Yeah, they just
So,
become overpowered. So anyway,
no, that's Blizzard's problem.
yep, not
Um,
ours. We're just going to play the game and use them. So, on to Hunter. Now, Hunter, both cards seem to have a weird, if your hand is empty, clause to them, which I guess means that they're accepting that, like Shaman, they have no card draw, but unlike Shaman's 2-for-1s, Hunter gets the Rush You Downs. So anyway, 4 mana, 4/4, Core Rager. It is a rare and it is a beast. Battlecry. If your hand is empty, gain +3/+3. Alright, so it's got the same drawback as the Crusher from earlier. Now, why does it have to have 7 attack, guys? Come on, make it a 6/7 at least. But just stop
if it was
giving it
okay,
7 attack.
if it was even if it wasn't a big game target,
It still wouldn't be that good, but that's not the point.
talked again about how okay, so you can't even play on curve, which is pretty important because and just in general, as you're playing for a 100 and you want to put down a big guy,
You just killed your
place
microphone
down
as you were
100.
moving it, by the way.
Sorry.
I did not hear you for the past, I think, 10 seconds because you were fiddling around with your mic.
Oh, my apologies. My piece is brushing and stuff.
Oh, okay. Alright.
Okay, so Core Rager. The big problem with Core Rager is, it's the same problem that we're talking about with Druid of Fang and the Spell Reaver and with Draken and Crusher. That this isn't a big guy on turn 4. This is a big guy on turn 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
And in the Hunter, where a lot of the time you're trying to keep drawing damage or sticky board stuff, it's just bad.
It is. The other thing is that a lot of people
Stories.
are like, you're playing Rush Hunter because you always have an empty hand. Have you actually played Rush Hunter? I don't think you actually have. I think you're some of the people complaining about it because you never have an empty hand. It does not happen. You have Unleash the Hounds, you have Kill Command, you have Arcane Golem. Like, these are things that do not get
Yeah, a lot of the time
played.
stuck in your hand until like the last turn of the game where they finish the turn.
Yeah, you have... Alright, you do get an empty hand once a game when you kill them. Like, it's just not... You don't really have an empty hand, and even if you do have an empty hand, I don't really want a 4 mana 7/7 that turns on his big game hunter that he's had stuck in his hand for the past 4 turns. So, Core Rager just seems bad. In every sense of the word. In Arena, I could see it maybe because it's okay as a beast, but I still don't even like it in Arena. I just think it's bad.
It's a bit bad.
Alright, so onto the good hunter card. Quick Shot. 2 mana, common, deal 3 damage if your hand is empty, draw a card. Now, Tiny Grimes, who was the guy who played the Acebreakers resident hunter player, I imagine he's very happy about this card because this is a Dark Bomb in Hunter. The funniest thing about this, and I guess this shows, again, that people who complain about Face Hunter don't play the deck. When people saying, no, this isn't a Face Hunter card because you have card... No, the best thing was people saying, it's a Face Hunter card because you always draw. And then you get the people responding to them saying, no, it's not a Face Hunter card because you never draw. And then you get the actual Face Hunter players responding saying, it's 3 damage for 2 mana, I will take it. It's really funny to watch this train.
There's things to say about this card, which is, it's very good, and it's almost certainly worth playing. Just because
very good.
It gives you something that Face Hunter is actually sort of fairly lacking in reach that goes through taunts.
They just have Kill Command and Hero Power.
It's Kill Command and that's it. And so often in a matchup like Hunter versus Handlock.
Or Druid.
It's about whether they have the one turn to top deck the Kill Command that they need to kill you.
Now they have Quick Shots.
And now they have twice as much chance to do it. And yeah, there will be ridiculous games in which you top deck Quick Shot and you play it and then you get the extra draw into the Kill Command to win the game.
No, I want to see someone go Quick Shot, Kill Command, Hero Power. Off the top of the deck.
Yeah. That's pretty disgusting. What damage is that?
That's like, what? If you have no beast, that's 11. And if you do have a beast, it's 13.
So yeah, it gives them something like that. But the problem is that in order to get that, you do have to cut something.
I think you could. There's a lot of redundancy in the Hunter list where you're just kind of adding extra damage cards. It's not like it doesn't have space issues. It has just enough cards to work.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean it's about having like critical mass of burn, right? And I think Hunter's already at that point. Right? You're not playing like bad cards. And like no, seriously, like what are you going to cut this?
Well, you could cut an Arcane Golem. Because Quick Shot Hero Power costs 1 more, but you can play it through Taunt, which will be better as a finisher. So you cut one Arcane Golem, and then maybe like...
Cut like early minions. You don't want to cut early minions, because sometimes you just need to stick early minions.
Oh no, you don't want to cut early minions, but the point is you could fit 2 Quick Shots in there somewhere. I don't know what the optimal amount is, but you definitely could.
Probably you cut Leroy.
Maybe, but the point is that you don't have space issues. You really don't. Like... There are things where you're playing 1-drops that are just 1-drops that kind of hit him. Like Worgen Infiltrator's in there just because it will usually get 2 damage in, and that's pretty much its only job.
The point is that it does a certain job, but Quick Shot doesn't do the same job. It does a different job.
It actually arguably does more than Worgen Infiltrator. I mean, I'm not suggesting replacing Worgen. I'm just saying like there's extra burn spells are more valuable in things like Wolf Rider, for example. Even though I think Wolf Rider is higher up on the list than something like Arcane Golem in terms of value, because you can play it as a 3-drop. But I think there is a way of fitting Quick Shot in there, and that's for the Hunter specialists to figure out, and not so much me. So I guess
it will be played because the deck will get refined, and it's easy to get sort of trapped in a particular pattern of thinking of this is how a Hunter deck is built. And it will take a while for the deck to get sort of refined to just quite the right way where you can fit it in and still have the right balance.
Yeah, it's like when Mad Scientist came out, when the right secrets, what do you cut, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I argue that that's still going on.
Yeah, but anyway, when Mad Scientist came out, everyone was thinking, how do you fit this in the deck? But then they realized there are ways of doing it. It's just hard to see at first.
Yeah, and so this is a very strong card, and it's one of the cards that's going to be in the first wave of in the first wing. So in that 1 week meta game, expect to see lots of Face Hunters.
Yep. Anyway, so onto the mage cards. Now we're going to start with the bad card and go into the good card. We have Dragon Breath, one of the worst burn spells ever created. 5 mana common mage spell, 4 damage. It does 4 damage, and it has the dies reduce thing, because I'm sick and tired of reading that clause. So basically, whenever anything dies, it gets reduced by 1. However, it's a 5 mana deal 4. I want to point this out because it's in Mage. Mage has Fireball, 6 for 4. They have Frostbolt, which is 3 for 2. So, and you even have Flame Cannon if you're using this as removal. So how cheap does this need to be before you actually feel good playing it? The answer, 1 mana.
Yeah, I mean,
What?
I think that...
Ice Lance deals 4 for like 1 in control decks. Ugh.
Mage has like the enough burns. Like, so, because the thing about burn spells is up to a certain point, each burn spell is like
Less
better
powerful than the
than
previous
burn
one.
spells have, right?
Yeah.
The 30 Mind Blast deck would be pretty good. Um, you know, even though the 2 Mind Blast deck is pretty bad.
Yep.
Uh, and so, even though it's worse than existing burn, like it might, that's not the reason that it's bad. The reason that it's bad is that
Costs
it's pretty
so
bad.
much.
Yeah, it's so
Oh,
expensive.
it's not even.
And so unlike things like Volcanic Drake, where it's always good to put out a 6/4, and it's always good to play Solemn Vigil, which we'll get to in a minute for less mana.
It's
But
not. It's not even like. It doesn't even.
like,
The burn thing doesn't even apply on this card. It's that bad. Like I would rather play Wolf Rider, Arcane Golem, Leper Gnome. I'd rather play minions that pseudo have burn effects.
yeah, it's like when it's not really a burn card. It's about So the kind of best case scenario is you flame strike the board, and then you kind of get your cheap Dragon's Breath to sort of just clear up the random crap at the end.
I guess.
But the chances of that happening successfully are low enough that, compared to the risk of having this crappy 5 mana burn spell
So
stuck in your
yeah,
hand.
you go like Flame Strike, Dragon Breath, and then you realize that what you could have done was like Frost Nova, Ice Block, and then next turn gone like Blizzard, and then set up your Arcane Intellect, and then like just played the deck properly. You know what I
So, I
mean?
mean, it's, the proportion of the time in which that's the best play is like not high enough to justify.
It's almost
Doesn't.
zero. Like that's the thing. It's just not good. There is one thing good about Dragon Breath though, the golden animation. It is very good. That's about it though. Now, Flame Waker, I finally got the Walker out of my system. 3 mana, 2/4 rare. After you
Doesn't
cast.
the
Wait, what?
sorry?
What were
Doesn't
you gonna-
the flavor text say something about that?
It
Like,
might. I didn't check it. But anyway,
it
after you
says like
cast.
really angry thing called Flame Walker. Flame Walker.
I'll actually check this because I think I can just open it up on Hearthstone. Do they have the flavor text already? They might. Yep, flavor text. Flame Wakers hate being confused for Flame Walkers. They just wake up fire. They don't walk on it. Walking on fire is crazy. That's awesome. Alright. Anyway, so the Flame Walker, deliberate that time, is a 3 mana 2/4 rare in Mage that has a, after you cast a spell, unique wording that's only on Wild Pyromancer, actually, before now. Deal 2 damage randomly split among all enemies. Now the weird thing about this animation is instead of being a 1/1, it's more of a shotgun effect. At least in the actual game, it just does both
Yeah, I
instantaneously.
thought that animation was a bit confusing actually.
It's confusing, but at least it doesn't take 15 years when you're doing your Epic Sax turn. So that's a plus. Now, Flame Waker, the funniest thing is people are saying, oh my god, spare parts Mech Mage, and then they're saying, no, you don't play this in Mech Mage, seriously. But anyway, in my opinion, I think this goes in some sort of weird and wonderful, probably, Tempo Mage deck, where you're playing these free spells of Kirin Tor and things like that.
Yeah, the deck that has Sorcerer's Apprentice, and you're playing Unstable Portals, and
Yeah, all the tempo spells.
do some pretty disgusting things with this, and like coin Unstable Portal.
It's pretty good, in my opinion. I don't know exactly how good, because it's hard to gauge, because you need to think about how many spells am I playing, how frequently am I playing them.
So it's just really good at mopping up boards full of 1/1s.
It's very good versus Paladin. They will hate you when you play this. Unless they have True Silver. But, yeah, Flame Waker also enables those really strange board wipe turns where you go Flame Waker into Frostbolt his guy, and then you can maybe ping something else. It also does have the nice synergy where if you have Flame Strike the next turn or something, if it's still alive, you Flame Strike and then it will only have the choice of his face or his biggest minions.
Yeah, it's a bit like a Blast Mage, except you have to put more effort in to
But then
make
it costs less.
It means you can set up the board a bit better. Like so, for the Blast Mage, sometimes you just have to kind of hope. But with Flame Waker, you can Frostbolt things and make sure that there's lots of one-hit things.
You can distribute your damage. It also means that you're required to have things in your hand as opposed to on the board, which makes it It's both harder and easier to trigger, which is why the reduced cost. I think overall it's easier to trigger because it costs one less as well, which means you can play like arcane missiles turns into 5 missiles, so that's a
It's one
thing.
thing. So, like, when Knife Juggler was nerfed, right, from being a 2/3,
Because it was too hard
because
to kill, yeah.
when an effect like this, yeah, the payoff is to immediately removing it is really high, or rather, the punishment for not immediately removing it is really high.
I will actually say, by the way, Flame Waker is a very good 3-drop to have against Blackwing Technician.
Correct.
Because it does not kill it in one hit, unless they're playing Rogue, but then like if they had to do something on turn 2 instead, then they don't have a weapon, or just things like that. There's ways around it, but any other class, if they're playing Blackwing Tech, they have to use something to kill the Flame Waker instead of playing their Hungry Dragon, for example, or they're just gonna get blown up. Like you frostbolt their Hungry Dragon, and then you maybe ping their other guy, and you can just clear both. Just with you can 2 for 2 a Hungry Dragon Black Tech start. That's impressive.
Right. So yeah, Flame Waker. Oh, the other thing to note about this is it's quite good to duplicate because it's kind of like Knife Juggler in this respect. The more you have,
The better it is.
the playing spell is.
Yeah, they
So,
stack up. They really do stack up.
I mean, the drawback is obviously you might not always have spells, and that's the thing that kind of brings that down to tempo magic bit sometimes. Is that they can't always guarantee that they have the right mixture of cards that benefit from having spells and spells.
All right. I think my final verdict on constructed playability, by the way, is that if you have enough spells in your deck to reliably use Mana Worm, you probably have enough to reliably use Flame Waker.
It's a very good point.
In Arena, it's also one of the better 3-mana 2/4s because Mage is one of the few classes that actually has higher spell counts in their deck than normal.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah, it's very good. You get Frostbolts, you have Flame Cannons that are good in Arena, you've got Frostbolt, you have Flame Strike, Fireball. They have a lot more spells in their deck than normal, which means that Flame Waker becomes better, and a 3-mana 2/4 with a good ability is good in Arena. So, anything else to say before we move on to the Dragon Consort?
Nope, let's move on.
Okie dokie, so onto the Paladin cards, and I'm trolling you. I'm actually going to start with the bad card. Solemn Vigil. Solemn Vigil. 5-mana common. Draw 2 cards with the reduced cost thing. It's bad. We saw this yesterday. It never gets played, and it's terrible.
I think that's a bit of an overstatement.
It's also in the wrong class.
I think right. So Paladin doesn't have a lot of card draw, and that's a pretty big deal. I think that the chances of so it's okay. Put it this way: if Paladins had Arcane Intellect, I think it would be close to playable in Paladin.
Close, yes. I don't know if it
If
would
not,
be, though.
yeah, it would be pretty marginal. Especially because if you're playing a Paladin deck with things like Quality Consecrate, you can sort of, the extra draw is pretty good.
But if you're playing Quality Consecrate, you have more cards in your hand, which means that you probably can just grind them out and then play Lay on Hands instead, which heals you as well, which is very useful.
I think it's partly a meta thing, but the fact that I think Solemn Vigil fits a bit better in like a mid-range deck. And you can feasibly get this off for not very much if your Master lives a turn. The problem, by the way, with all of this stuff in the context of things like Muster and Implosion is that, especially Muster, because your opponent can't let your Muster live for a turn, or they just die to cause a Master potentially.
Yeah, but then they kill it and you don't get Solemn Vigil.
That's my point.
So
That's a weakness of them.
that's something we noticed actually with all of the death cards, with the exception of one time when the dragon got played, and even then it wasn't that impacting. What we noticed was that because of the way that the dragon cards work, where they have high stat totals, but mostly on health, what tended to happen was that everything was just trading on the opponent's turn. You'd spend your turn trading, and your opponent would be trying to stick threat, and the Solemn Vigil kept being reduced, but never on his turn where you could actually play it. Like on his turn, he'd get it down to maybe 4 or 3 mana after playing something else, and just didn't have enough mana to play it. That's something we noticed. It just never worked. In fact, there were 2 Solemn Vigils in his hand in one of the games that went to fatigue. It was that slow, and it still never had time to play it.
I'm skeptical of taking too much like judgment from a game where the deck wasn't like specifically built to maximize the value of Solemn Vigil because again, it's one of those cards that you really need to kind of build around.
Yeah, but it had a quality consecrates, and it was like doing board wipe plan.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe you play Solemn Vigil if you're playing the kind of more mid-range paladin, things like Zombie Chow. And I mean, Paladin's lack
Maybe.
of cards is really noticeable. Like you have times against Warrior.
Don't you have?
Um,
Isn't this just a worse cult
where
master, by the way? You can only play on your turn. Stuff has to die, and it draws less cards.
um, that is an extremely good point.
Because I've played Quartermaster and Master for Battle decks before, and that seems way stronger than this.
Um, that's a really good point. The thing about Cult Master is that when Cult Master is really bad, it's really worse than Soul Individual because you have the option of
I
team
mean,
five.
the bar is pretty low. Like, what's worse, a 4 mana 4/2 or a 5 mana draw 2?
Therefore, not four.
They're both atrocious, but anyway.
Um,
Uh,
and also like because I don't know, it's just different. Like getting this off to zero. Um,
it's very good for 0. For 1,
but yeah, I agree,
it's.
right? So even in the dream scenario, it doesn't win the game as well like Cult Master.
It needs to be
Uh,
3 mana to be playable and 2 mana to be good. That's the
the
problem.
other thing it has synergy with is Chromagic.
Come on. What's that?
In the sense that it's possible to draw on the same turn that you play.
Oh, yeah,
Also,
that's true. I guess you can, like. That a lot of stuff needs to trade, though, for that to work.
yeah, it's pretty unlikely to happen.
Or
So yeah, okay. Especially when thinking about Cold Master, I think that's a really good point.
Now, on to arguably the best class card, along with the Shaman one. Uh,
Wow.
Dragon Consort. 5 mana, 5/5 dragon with Battle Cry. The next dragon you play costs 2 less. Now, this is why we were talking about Paladin when we were talking about Chromagus, because that combo, keep in mind, this is not a one-turn effect. It can be your next turn, it can be 15 turns from now, just the next dragon you play. Which means that if you're playing Consort and then a couple other dragons, say you're playing Consort as your drakes, and you're just playing a small dragon engine, and you have like a Chromagus at the top of your curve. So you have no big game hunter targets, being the point. So you have Dragon Consort. You play it, so either you get a 5 mana 5/5, and your next dragon will either be a 3 mana 5/5 that makes the rest of yours cost less, a 3 mana 4/4 that draws a card and gives you spell power, or a 6 mana 6/8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Consort is obviously extremely powerful, both because you can you're just pretty much guaranteed to get value out of it. You can do absurd things like Consort, and then next turn, I mean, so you can coin out Consort, and then next turn play like Consort Hungry Dragon.
Can you? Oh god, you can.
Or
Wow.
sacks, right? I mean, it works on itself.
Yeah,
So
because
then
I
you
was thinking they don't stack, but then I realized the first one costs 3, the second one costs 3, then the Hungry Dragon costs. That's insane.
yeah. And so one of the reasons that we were talking about why things like Ysera and Nefartin and Alexstrasza are bad in a lot of cases is because they just don't come down early enough to be impactful. They can be
Yeah.
ignored. Often situations where you just have to deal with their board because otherwise you will die. But on turn 7, much less so.
Yeah, on turn 7 much less so. Like you mentioned earlier with Chromagus, like on turn 8 he's much easier to remove, just like Kel'Thuzad. Imagine if you could innervate Kel'Thuzad fairly regularly.
Yeah. That's the scenario.
Without losing a card, because it's not like a 5 mana 5/5 is below standard. It's actually standard or slightly above. I mean, it eats Sludge Belcher for breakfast, literally, because it's a dragon.
So, okay, you can think of it this way. Instead of you playing Ysera into their Doctor Boom, they're playing their Doctor Boom into your Ysera.
Yeah, which is way worse.
um,
Or, like, you play Dragon Consort, and then you play Alexstrasza, and if they play Boom, they die.
Yeah, being able to Axtraza someone on turn 7 is pretty fun.
Oh, yeah, turn 7. Like if you're going first, you play that, and it's just absurd. The other thing is the big dragons are the big flashy effects, but then there's some really stupid ones. Like you play this late in the game, and just along with the big dragons, and you go Chromagus, Consecration, or Truce Over. That seems fun. But then you've got even the smaller dragons is where it gets a bit dumb. Like just being able to go Dragon Consort turn 5 and then go turn 6, just like Azure Drake muster for battle.
Yeah, or if you coin out the consort, you can go Hungry Dragon Master for battle and stab the.
And stab whatever came out, or like, and you have a 5/5 on the board. That's we've said before. 5 health is hard to get rid of. I mean, we've seen from Loatheb, half of his value is his effect, but the reason why he's so universally playable is because he's a 5/5.
Yeah.
5/5s are large.
Yeah, I mean, so 5/5s, again, it's possible that they might get a bit less relevant because of the Shaman card
Sludge Belcher still exists, though.
of Hungry Dragon, but yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could play, yeah, I mean, I think Sludge Belcher might get a lot worse because there are so many 5 attack minions. So.
Yeah, so he just gets eaten by, like, I mean, it feels so wrong to get a 5-drop eaten by a 4-drop.
Yeah.
And it's the same with, like, Dragon Consort eats it, Loatheb does. It also might mean that because of the way that this seems to be shaping up is that minions matter more, but then you need these swing spells on the turns when you're behind, I think Loatheb might be getting stronger again. Like, he's worse against Hungry Dragon, but then the tempo play might matter more than his body, whereas in the past it's been the other way around.
Yeah,
I think he's going to survive in terms of playability, whereas Sludge Belcher might go down a bit.
yeah.
I think that's probably what we're going to see there. But yeah, Dragon Consort is amazing, and I would not be surprised if Paladins just cut, like, they could cut, like, Quartermaster and just run Dragon Consort, Azure Drake, and Loatheb, and just go massive tempo plays.
Don't forget Blackrock Corrupted.
Oh god, yeah, you need to, like, how would you do this? Like, we talked
So I
about this
thought I mentioned
earlier.
that.
You
Yeah,
need to play, do you, like, cut your 6-drops? It's not like
uh,
Paladin has good 6-drops, let's be honest here. So,
uh, Jotto, everyone has good 6 drops now. Well, at least one.
kind of. But anyway, you can go like, well, I mean, they don't have a class-specific one they need to play. So you've
Yeah,
got
and I
Dragon.
mean, in fact, so Sylvanas, the
You play
previously best 6 is
you
like
play
not.
Sylvanas. You play Sylvanas,
I
but
mean, you don't have to play Sylvanas because no, a lot of paladins these days don't, and the reason is that a lot of the time against control, which is where you would be playing Sylvanas for, by turn 6 you're ahead on the board, so the Sylvanas is
true.
actually great.
What about like you could play maybe Black Knight.
Yeah, I think you can just
I
stick
think you
and
can get away without it, but alright, so maybe a Black Knight. So what you do is you just get rid of your 6-drops, and then you can play like double Consort. Yeah, you play double Consort, double Corruptor, and then like um, Azure Drakes, and then I think you cut Sludge Belcher and Loatheb entirely.
I guess it depends on the meta. Like you might need the Belcher to
Oh,
stay on.
you might need it, and I think if that's the case, it's the Azure Drake that takes the dip,
Yeah,
because the consorts are just amazing.
really on that
So,
one. By the way, I forgot to mention this about Flame Wake. That it's a 3-drop that Hunter can't ignore, which is a big deal.
oh yeah, it just wipes the board over and over again. Arcane
Yeah.
Intellect,
So,
kill your Wolf Rider on your web spinner.
so a large part of what makes Space Hunter so incredibly annoying is that a lot of the time you need to like inefficiently trade into their Wolf Riders just to stop just because you can't take the damage, and
Yeah.
if you kill it, you take so much tempo. But you play the Flame Waker on
And then it
3
just
or
kills them
on
for
2.
free, basically.
Yeah, it kills them for free as you're playing more stuff. And that's how you lose the game.
Yeah,
Um,
that's actually true. That's a very good point. It also applies against any aggro deck.
yeah, and it plays against Paladin, it plays against
Even Zoo, if Zoo
Blackrock.
makes a bit of a comeback. Although Flame Waker is bad against the Imp Gang boss, but we'll get to him.
So again, it's this kind of backlash against boards full of tiny stuff, and
Also, I figured out why it's a shotgun effect. It's because it means that they don't go independently, so you can't get things like Acolyte of Pain drawing in between. Or like, what's it called? Imp Gang Boss spawning an imp, which is now a new target. So it's a shotgun effect. It's not a queued up thing like with
Oh,
arcane
yeah.
missiles.
Well, I think that's quite interesting. But,
So that
okay,
makes sense. Anyway, so
let's move on.
Dragon Consort, good. Now, priest cards. Let's see if they follow the tradition of saying, hey, base set priest was really bad, so we're going to keep adding overpowered cards until eventually the priest bubble is going to break. Now, the funny thing about all these priest cards is if you look at Naxxramas, GVG, and arguably now, they keep adding really good cards to priest and it just doesn't work because priest base set does not work with any of them.
Yeah, because like Vol'jin is and Dark Cultist and stuff are independently like incredibly good cards, but they just
Don't.
don't. So they make Priest better, but they don't make it better at the things that are causing it to lose games at the moment.
Like priest
Which
after
are
Naxxramas was literally Dark Cultist carrying Anduin on his back.
I think
Like,
the thing about Priest is sometimes they're just not on the board and they don't have any way to get on the board, and they've got a handful of AoE that doesn't quite match up against the opponent's board,
it's funny you say
and they're
that
like, okay,
because
so now I need Organized Circle or I lose, and then you don't have it.
both of these cards actually help board advantage. So we'll start with what's arguably the good card. Actually, we disagree a bit on Twilight World, but even then, I think Resurrect is the good card. Resurrect is the first graveyard interaction in the game. That's a big milestone. 2 mana. Summon a random friendly minion. Friendly. That's important. That has died this game. Now, something to note is that it says friendly, and most priest cards I will happily get back for 2 mana. Happily, happily, happily. The worst one is probably Northshire Cleric, and I will still get that late game.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that even if there is something quite bad in your quote-unquote graveyard, the chances of something are quite small.
You know, yeah.
So the nice thing about this is that it works quite well with some other priest cards like
Injured Blade Master. Yeah, that's really dumb. If you play
7.
that with Circle and then they somehow kill it and then you play Resurrect. That's
It might also be the case, by the way, that all these 5 attack minions that you talked about cause priest to get better because you can actually play 2 deaths without losing some matchups.
yeah, you can Shadow Word Death and you don't need to rely on Big Game Hunter, you just have deaths for all this stuff. So, but yeah, Resurrect, something that's interesting about Resurrect is that almost every priest card is like that, but it also allows you to play proactively as priest because you have all these big minions, like Dark Cultist has big stats and it has a good death rattle, but now you've got Resurrect, which makes each of the priest sticky minions that have persistent effects better, which is important. As long as they don't have battle cries, they don't lose value. Actually, with Ninja Blade Master, he gains value from not having his battle cry.
It's worth noting that priest. Also, okay, so you can't really think of this as like a 4/7 or Dark Cultist
Oh no,
for
it's
2
not.
mana.
It's just a random.
And the reason for that is that it wouldn't be as good as those cards, even if that's what it did all the time, because it would be cast on time too, right? It's this card that gets stuck in your hand for a while, and that's a big problem for priest.
Yeah, it does.
But and the thing about priest is like, so this gives you tempo, but priest isn't really about tempo. It's about these huge swing turns.
It could be about tempo though, because there's enough tempo cards. I think they don't have a critical mass of tempo cards yet to make it work.
The other thing priest has a problem with is priest has all these amazing board clears like Light Bomb, all kind of circle and stuff. But they don't really have a way of getting back onto the board after that. And so maybe Resurrect is that. It's the cheap tempo play that allows you to.
Yeah, it gets you back on the board.
Yeah. So you kill it. You don't just kill their board, but then for 2 mana you get a Yeti in the form of Bar Shadow Priest or whatever. And that's really interesting to me. Part of the problem though is it is another one of those kind of situational cards that you don't want to get too many of.
It's also got what I like to refer to as priest randomness, where unlike shaman randomness, where with the exception of spell power totem, you play to your outs.
Yeah.
Priest randomness is the epitome of YOLO.
Let's find out what happens. Yeah.
You just go with it. It's just like let's just thought steal and see what we get.
This card is like, it's not good enough to justify like building a deck around it and not putting any 2-drops in and so on.
Yeah.
But So really, what we're thinking about is how good is it in just what's basically normal priest deck.
Is this
The
going to
other,
be an
the other thing,
unstable portal thing again, where it's like how good is it on its average? But unstable portal does something when you haven't without situations coming up.
well, so the other thing that, yeah, so the problem that think we'll talk about with unstable portal is that every deck has like a theme, right? A
Yeah,
strategy, and unstable portal seemed like it was just a quote unquote good card, and it didn't really fit into the strategy. So then you're not just giving up, that one spot. You're giving up the idea, the possibility of putting four mechs in your deck, for example.
it's power
Uh,
versus synergy. I even made a video about
but
this.
Unstable Portal does have a lot of synergy with Sorcerer's Apprentice, with Flamewaker, just because it's a spell that you can cast without losing any card advantage.
Well, I mean, as a spell, it does, but its
Uh,
synergy comes from being a minion spell, or is it a spell minion?
yeah, exactly, right. But Resurrect doesn't really do that.
Yeah, that's true. Because
Uh,
I mean, one, it's not a mage.
yeah.
Like that's, yeah, I don't know. Resurrect, it
Uh,
seems good. I don't know how
I
good
think
it
it's
is
interesting.
though. It's interesting.
Um,
It's definitely interesting.
and things that do something really interesting usually will eventually see play in some kind of
Now,
form.
the reason I was thinking about some sort of tempo
Um,
deck is because of the next card and the advent of dragons. Twilight Whelp. Now, this is the last dragon in the entire set. Well, it's more of a whelp than a dragon. But anyway, it's a 1 mana 2/1 dragon. Common with Battle Cry. If you're holding a dragon, it becomes a 2/3 when you play it. Now, we're actually going to bring up the nice and dandy dragon synergy card thing I have over here. So we're going to try and make sure that this is working. Yep, alright. So basically, this is the same thing we were using in the last video, but it's got all the dragons, and if you notice, there's Big Game Hunter appearing up behind its targets. It gets quite amusing, actually, when you get to Deathwing, and there's just tons of them. But anyway, so these are all the dragon synergies, so these are the kinds you can be playing. Now, because of the way Twilight Whelp functions, it's a bit strange, because in the case of the Blackwing cards, they cost a bit more mana, because they're supposed to synergize with higher drop dragons, whereas in the case of Twilight Whelp, it synergizes with things as low as Fairy Dragon. The reason this is weird is because this is a priest card and it's a tempo card. It's supposed to be in a deck that is getting on the board quickly with lower drop dragons and getting and just kind of beating your face in and doing it that way, but then it's in priest and it has 3 health, which means it will probably just get zombie chowed. Not as in terms of it will die to zombie chow, but the priest will play zombie chow.
yeah, so there's a lot of you can see the attraction of dragons in priest because priest is one of the classes that could make the most use out of the 3 mana 3/5. And
Yeah, we said this
just
earlier.
big stuff like blue dragon and stuff because they can heal it. That's the big challenge with priest because you have to be able to kind of guarantee consistently getting stuff on the board to kill their stuff with and then heal. Um, and the problem with Twilight Whelp is it's a turn 1 drop, right? Which means so on turn 1, if you're going first, you have what 4 cards in your hand.
You have way less. The thing is, it's less likely to go off, which is why you need a ton of dragons. But then you
And the number
can't
of dragons
get away with that.
play in priest is not that high.
These are the low drop dragons that you'll be fine keeping if you have a whelp. There's basically Fairy Dragon, Hungry Dragon, Twilight Drake if you're playing it, which you probably wouldn't be, and Dragonkin Sorcerer. Which we actually Dragonkin Sorcerer would make it into that deck because you'd be playing Velen's Chosen.
Oh, Dragon sorry, yeah.
The 3/5.
Okay, so the priest dragon deck has Dragon Sorcerer, right? But the problem is that it's so you have Twilight Whelp, so 3 of the cards in your hand have one of those 3 cards has to be a dragon.
Yeah.
And that has to happen often enough for the drawback of sometimes it's only a 2/1 to be less
be
bad
negated.
From Chow, which is heal your opponent for 5, which in priest is almost never relevant because priest is usually less efficient.
Yeah.
So some current priest win zombie chow, some don't. I feel like Twilight Whelp is in almost all cases, even if you have a lot of dragons, you get worse than zombie chow.
I feel like there's only one scenario where Twilight Whelp will see play off a zombie chow. The funny thing is, if zombie chow didn't exist, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But if there's only one scenario where I think it will see play over it, which is if there might be enough tempo cards at this point in Priest. I mean, you've got all the GVG stuff that everyone's forgotten about. You've got all the GVG cards that are tempo based that don't fit in Priest, but now you've got Dragons, which they're not based on board advantage, they're based on a tempo style, which does work with Priest quite well because they need ways of getting back on the board without losing tempo. So they also have access to Dragonkin Sorcerer, which the other classes don't really have because they have the best buff spells. And if that's the case, maybe the healing is a drawback. Again, I'm stretching here. I don't really think it is, but maybe it is, and maybe Whelp is good enough, but...
And all that stuff with Dragons, maybe, but I think that deck is pretty good.
I mean, even if you're going to play Dragons in Priest, first of all, you're probably going to play Zombie Chow anyway, so that you make sure you have board advantage before your first Technician comes down.
So, how many Zombie Chows do you need?
I think you only need 2 Zombie Chows, to be honest.
Yeah, so, I don't think it's one.
Like, Zombie Chow's Northshire Clerics, I think that's enough 1-drops.
Dream on?
Yep, alright. We have 4 more classes, so yep, it seems to be absolutely fine on terms of that. Now we've got Dark Iron Skulker. Now Dark Iron Skulker is a 5-mana 4/3 rare with Battlecry, deal 2 damage to all undamaged enemy minions, also known as weird AoE backstab thing. I'll let you talk about this since you played way more Rogue than I have.
So Dark Iron Skulker is a really interesting card because it has an incredibly strong effect. But it's a fairly situational effect, and in your 5-drops, what you need as a rogue is the opposite of that. Because you need minions you can just throw out, like Drake and Lothar and stuff that they might learn.
You're a bit fuzzy, by the way. Are you like far away from your microphone or something?
Sorry, is that any better?
Yes, that's far better actually.
Sorry, guys. Right. Skulker. Yeah, so, and the other problem with this is a lot of the good thing about AoE in Rogue is that you can backstab things before you AoE in order to make sure the AoE kills everything. And the Skulker, you can't really do that. But on the other hand, you get this access to this incredibly powerful effect, stapled to a pretty decent body. And so I think the thing about this card is you're probably going to see play in certain metagames where there are lots of boards where, so for example, if Paladin is incredibly popular, then a lot of the time against Paladin you can just lose because you don't have enough fans of knives and blade flurries to actually clear all the boards that they can put out. If you draw forward, and Skulker can let you do that, if there's lots of implosions running around, then Skulker can fit in there. But the problem with it is it's kind of clunky because the Vibe slot is so crowded. Azure Drake is just the best card in Rogue by a million miles. And the fits so well with the purpose of the deck. So I don't think it's going to be a 2 and everything. But it is an incredibly powerful effect.
Worth keeping an eye on, in other words. So, since I think we should move on a little bit faster here, we've got Gang Up, the other Rogue card. Weird card. 2 mana, choose a minion, shuffle 3 copies of it into your deck. So basically you pick a minion and then you get 3 copies of it in your deck to draw later. I don't see this card as being good because it doesn't really do anything, apart from one exception, which is Mill Rogue.
Yeah, so in Mill Rogue, the thing is, so normally you would think of it as, so shuffling more copies of the card into your deck doesn't usually make any difference until you draw all the cards in your deck, except because it might make your average draw slightly better. Because
it's minion as well, not spell. It doesn't say any card. If it said any card, that'd be way better.
Well, you can't target spells.
Well, I guess if it was in your hand, but yeah, you can't target spells.
But the thing about Mill Rogue, there's 2 reasons why this is good in Mill Rogue. One is that you need more cards in your deck to prevent yourself. So it means you don't have to be too careful about decking out.
And 2, you always draw your deck.
And 2, not only do you always draw your deck, but some of your cards are dramatically better than others.
Yeah, that's true.
With the obvious example of Cold Light Oracle, to the extent that you play Lethal Brewmaster to try and be an extra copy of the Cold Light Oracle. So the ability to put extra Cold Light Oracles in your deck that you can then use for the other Cold Light Oracles in your deck. Overdraw your opponent.
That's a lot, and 3 copies, that's a lot.
Yeah, so that's a huge deal. Unfortunately, um, Milrogue is bad, and I think even with this boost, it's probably still
Oh, I
bad.
think it's bad. Also, no one play Gang Up in any other deck besides Milrogue because it does nothing.
Oh yeah, that's the other point. That
It's the Malorn
usually
effect all over again.
deck composition isn't worth 2 mana. Dimensional Circle.
Yeah, it's not.
And Rogue isn't usually the kind of deck which will be in the circumstances where both players are top decking, and they have a Ragnaros, but now you can make 3 Ragnaros, like a sort of control warrior versus control mage sort of scenarios. But um, this card is
Yeah. Anyway, so Gang Up is the worst of the two rogue cards. On to the Shaman. Now, we're going to talk about Fire Destroyer, then I'm going to quickly reiterate the Lava Shock math, which I had earlier, or sorry, maths. Anyway, so Fireguard Destroyer. 4 mana, 3/6, common with Battle Cry, gain 1 to 4 attack. It has Overload 1. Now, the fact that I even compared this to Dragon Consort probably tells you how powerful this thing is. This is utterly insane. It's between a 4 mana 4/6 and a 4 mana 7/6. Now, someone might say, hey, doesn't that fail the Big Game Hunter test? Yes and no, because yes, it dies to Big Game Hunter, but you're playing 1 in Shaman, which can easily kill a Big Game Hunter, and 2, it only costs 4 mana, not 7 or 8. So you're not getting tempoed that badly. In fact, if he Big Game Hunter is your Fireguard Destroyer, and you, say, Lightning Bolt his Big Game Hunter, you lose out on 2 Overload and 2 mana. That's if you don't like Rockbiter or something. But anyway, the point is you lose out on 2 mana, but then he gains a card. Yes, but he doesn't have Big Game Hunter for your Boom or Neptulon anymore, and you're playing Shaman with your Storms and Feral Spirits and like all these crazy 2-for-1s, so you will catch up in card advantage, and that's if you go unlucky. If you get lucky and you get a 4 mana 6/6, you basically win the game.
yeah. So I think this is really interesting because it basically flips everything that Shaman is built around on its head. So Shaman is built around the idea that you have no good 4 drops, so you're going to try and overload yourself on turn 4, so that then you can play. You've got lots of strong 5 drops, which don't overload you, so that you can play your turn 6 Fire Elemental.
Now you have strong 4, 5,
And
and
you
6 drops.
have incredibly strong 4 drop, which overloads you, so you don't want too many 5 drops. So you're already pressured about whether you want to have Azure Drake or Lurtheb or Sludge Belcher or Anti-Peel Bot or Bomb Lobber, and
It's going to
so
be
now,
hard.
or you want to instead of curving Feral Spirits into Flame Tongue, into Drake, into Fire Elemental, you're curving some
Fireguard
3 drop
Destroyer into like Hungry
into.
Dragon into Fire Elemental, maybe. Or Shredder.
I think Shredder is probably better
Well, I
than
mean,
Hungry
like,
Dragon.
alright, in a normal Shaman deck, it would be Shredder. You want to know a deck building conundrum that I'm going to try and tackle and probably fail miserably? Fitting Fireguard Destroyer with a Dragon Engine. You can wish me luck
Yeah,
on that because it's going to be really
I
difficult.
think so.
I think it's
The other thing,
possible, but it's really hard.
so Shaman just um,
They
so the other thing
basically
is
just got the best
this
4 drop in the game, right?
yeah, and so we were talking earlier about how you have all these huge things that they come down and they're big, and just being big isn't enough at a certain point in the game. But turn 4 is a big difference from playing a big thing on turn 5 or turn 6.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the difference between playing a 7/6 on turn 4 and a 7/6 on turn 5 is 7 damage. Um, and that's a huge deal. Like so, Shaman obviously traditionally has problems dealing with base hunters, but if you play a 7/6 on turn 5,
Or
on turn
3.
4,
Or 3.
um,
Coin.
or 3 with coin,
Uh,
um, you're not going to lose that race.
you're just
So then they
not.
have to
They have
damage
to
killing
kill it.
it. And
Uh,
so that's a classic way you win with Shaman with Fire Elemental, right? You play it without losing too much tempo because you play it and um, it's a 6 attack guy, so you can kind of brace them sometimes.
there's two things I want to note
For
about
this,
the art, by the way, which I find hilarious. The first of all is that all the good shaman cards have fire elemental art. The second one is that this completely destroys Water Elemental, which is a flavor foul.
Water is super effective against fire, Jotto.
It's magical fire.
Fire is super effective against ice.
It's
Water is
magical
kind of
fire. That's a quote that someone might get. But yeah,
yeah,
it's
I credit him for that. But yeah, I just the fact that you can drop a, when you talk about this Honey Dragon, right? The fact that you can drop a 5/6 on turn 4, 75% of the time it's going to have 5 attack or more, and thus be able to kill their lower effect, their Sludge Belcher there. And Sludge Belcher gives Shaman so much trouble because it's so awkward to kill it with their removal spells. But now you can just play Fire Card Destroyer and just
eat it.
yeah.
It doesn't even.
And
It still has 2 life left over after
so
killing it
one of the problems
completely.
sometimes, sorry, one of the problems that Shaman sometimes has against Rogue and Warrior is that those decks have enough removal to kill all the Shaman's threats, and then you just kind of fizzle out because you don't have enough stuff.
Yeah.
The Fire God Destroyer is an extra huge threat that actually does damage, and
So this is one of the top 3 cards in the set, in my opinion.
yeah.
It's up there. It definitely is up there.
It's really interesting to see how Shamans kind of rework their stuff in order to try and get the right player to play.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing, of course, is play turn 4 Fire God Destroyer, turn 5 Fire God Destroyer.
Oh
Which,
jeez.
it's a lot of fire elemental, is pretty scary.
And then you can play your Blackwing thing on turn 5, and yeah. Anyway, so Fire Guard Destroyer, very very good. Now, I'm getting feedback on your end.
Oh, sorry.
And now it's really, really roboty. Yep. Yes. I just had you muted on the video for the last, I think, about 30 seconds. That
30
was...
seconds.
No, because when you were roboting. I just told you were roboting. Anyway, overestimated. But...
Okay, so the other thing is, you've seen people already cutting Feral Spirits because they're a bit clunky, right?
yeah.
This kind of might sort of accelerate that trend because you don't want to be overloaded on turn 4 anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I don't play Feral anymore, so...
Yeah.
It also makes Unbound Elemental way stronger.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing I was going to say. Because, the problem with Unbound is... Yeah, so we've seen Unbound as kind of a bit of a legacy card just because a 3/5...
It only synergizes with spells. That was its main problem. Now there's a big minion on curve that synergizes with it. So that works. Now, so Fire Guard Destroyer, one of the best cards in the set. The other one though, Lava Shock, is one of those weird cards where I did talk about this at length when I went over it when it was spoiled. But basically, Lava Shock is a 2-mana deal 2 damage rare, and it unlocks your overloaded mana crystals. Now, this applies when you play it after playing an overload spell, and also if you play it next turn. However, there's something weird about this, which is that, first of all, the Emperor makes it way stronger, the Emperor Thorazan, because if you hit Lava Shock and a bunch of overload spells, then the Lava Shock basically becomes 1 mana deal 2 damage, unlock all your overload, and the overload spells didn't really cost that much anyway. But
and you can play more overload spells in one turn.
yeah, basically you can play a bunch of overload, have a massive overload turn, and then just Lava Shock your way out of it. The weird thing is, if you don't hit it with Thorazan, where it becomes a kind of cat and mouse game where you're trying to figure out, like, when do you Lava Shock, when is it actually effective, because unlocking 2 mana, paying 2 mana to do 2 damage and unlock 2 mana is not Innervate. You're not getting 2 mana for free, you're spending 2 mana from your turn. Like, you basically just used up your overload to do a backstab. You're still off your curve. So to stay on curve, you have to Lava Shock at the right time, and the only time that really applies is if you go like Lightning Storm, Lava Shock, and turn 5 into Fire Elemental, but now that Fire Guard Destroyer's around, that might not even happen. So, I don't know about Lava Shock.
So the thing about Lava Shock is, even if it's not, even if you don't have any overload, you can still just play it as, like, a lot of the time Shaman spells just get used as a generic spell because I have 3 spell power on the board. Um, and so that's something to bear in mind. Um,
It is still pretty below average for, especially for a shaman. 2 damage for
oh
two
yeah,
mana.
absolutely. But my point is, it does have that utility.
It does. The other problem is shaman doesn't have card draw, and lava shock is it's mana efficient, but it's not card efficient in any way.
Yeah. Um, but again, the thing is that in the matchups where you really need so in the matchups where playing that lightning storm on turn 5 really screws you over against hunters, right? Times where every man is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Whereas in control matchups, you're spamming a lot of totems, always got loads of spell power, and so
It's
you have a bit
worse
more.
against control, better against aggro. That's definitely true.
Yeah,
That's definitely true. So it depends on the meta game. Like, I'm not against Lava Shock, because if it's good, I'll play it. Like, that's kind of my logic with cards anymore. Like, I don't really think it's like, oh, I don't like this card, therefore I won't play it. I'm past that phase like a year ago. But, I
you can
don't know,
do
I'm just not sold on it. I think it needs testing, and I think assuming that it's good, which is what a lot of people have been doing, they've just been assuming it's really, really overpowered and broken, I think is a little bit too premature, in my opinion.
It's extremely difficult to judge, but I think it's good. I think it's fine.
Anyway, so Shaman got good cards. Warlock, Imp Gang Boss, one of the best names for a minion in the game. Alright, 3 mana, 2/4 Demon Common, that's relevant for Arena. Whenever this minion takes damage, summon a 1/1 Imp. Now, this is surprisingly very similar to Harvest Golem. Very similar to Harvest Golem. However, it does in fact trade with a Blackwing Technician, whereas Harvest Golem does not.
So yeah, there's a dramatic difference between this and Harvest Golem. Not only are the stats slightly better, right? It's as if it's a Harvest Golem, but the back half is only 1/1, and the front half is 2/4.
Which is
Except that
better now,
sometimes,
worse before. And sometimes makes 2/1/1s.
yeah. So sometimes you, again, it's the thing where you play it on turn 3 against a hunter, and if they don't do anything about it, which they pretty much can't, then they'll just
Keep
deal
making
with all
one
that stuff.
ones. The other thing is Demon Wrath is the new AoE. Actually, we should probably talk about these at the same time because they do work together. Uh,
Um, the other so can we talk? I have a
yeah,
couple more things.
yeah, go for it, and then I'll do my
Like you
Demon
said,
Wrath and Gang Boss thing.
one of the things about this is so a lot of the Demon Lock and Demon Handlock decks that have been people have been playing around with in the last few weeks or months is it's really hard to fit in enough demons to make Voidcaller good enough. Like a lot of the time, you have to put in like a Doom Guard or
Illidan.
or a Dread Infernal sometimes, and it just gets a bit awkward. But M Gang Boss is a card that is independently awesome enough to play it, and also again another problem that a lot of those decks had is they really didn't have any turn 3 plays. So I mean, I think in the most extreme example, that Zoo deck that got number 1, who I can't remember who played it, but the Zoo list with Doctor Boom that people were they went around a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
Played literally no 3-drops, if I remember correctly.
yeah, because all the 3-drops were terrible.
Because all the 3-drops are less good than like tap and 1-drop. But now you have Imp Gang Boss and Demon Wrath, which you can both play against Hunter on turn 3, so that you're not just hero powering and making it easier to kill you.
Yep.
And one consequence I think of both of these cards is that so there's been kind of 2 archetypes of Warlock at the moment. So there's the kind of mid-rangey human Warlock, which has like sticky things on the board and then power overwhelming and stuff like that. And the handlock version, which has Twilight Drakes and Ancient Watchers and so on. And I think by providing that sort of 3-drop that both decks will play, it kind of pushes the 2 closer together in terms of.
Are you continuously fiddling with your mic, or are you like playing solitaire on your table?
Sorry.
Yes, Waxer does that as well, so I recognize the sound. Anyway, yeah. No, he just fiddles around with his table, so like plays solitaire or like mess around with his mic.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, continue.
Okay, so yeah, should we talk about Demon Wrath now?
So basically, Demon Wrath is the new AoE spell for Warlock. 3 mana, deal 2 damage to all non-demon minions. Now, besides being awkward in the mirror match, this is very, very good because it does not affect Imp Gang Boss or his imps. It doesn't affect any imps from Flame Imp to Implosion tokens. It doesn't affect your 1/3 taunt that you like playing on turn 1 in the Void. Is it? Wait, is it? There's Void Caller, there's Void Walker, it's Walker, right?
The one drop one, you said.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep losing track of the Voids. Anyway, so yeah, there's Void Walker, which doesn't get affected by it, which is a big deal. It affects all the Hunter stuff. It basically kills all the Hunter stuff without affecting your side of the board if you're playing in a Demon deck. And it costs so little mana that if you're playing enough Demons in your Zoo deck, which actually might be possible now, it costs so little mana that you can actually play it while playing like other stuff after it.
I mean, yeah, it triggers your Nerubian Egg.
Oh yeah, it triggers your Nerubian Egg. That's a
I don't
big
think you're
deal.
going to play Zoo for the reason that in Zoo the whole point is that all of your cards, that none of your cards are situational.
Well, I mean, you need a few more demons before this is good as well. Like, you need 1 or 2 extra demons to go into that deck, but the mid-rangey demon decks will eat this up, I think. The art is also some of the best in the set.
The art's are lovely.
I want to see the gold
so
version.
one of the problems that Warlock has kind of had is that they haven't had that much like flexible AOE. So all this time I've been talking about the boards the board states in Background and GVG that are full of spiders and imps and Silverhand recruits that Warlock is just incredibly bad at dealing with. The Paladin plays Master for Battle and you basically have to Hellfire it.
Yeah, it's miserable.
Which is just Whereas now you have a sort of slightly cheaper way of doing that, or of clearing up the board after a Hellfire that's left some things damaged and some things with death rattles, and you just have more options. And, when the Hunter on turn 2, when they have a Knife Juggler, and Mad Scientist, and Worgen Infiltrator, and Hellfire is a bit too late, but Demon Wrath comes early enough. The interesting balance will be to see how much AoE of each kind that you run, because
you've got 3 now, right?
Yeah, and they all have their advantages to the point that you want to run Hellfire, Demon Wrath, and Shadow Flame. But the question is, the balance that you strike.
Maybe like 1 Demon Wrath. Well, actually, it depends on your deck list. It doesn't actually depend
That's
on
the nice thing about Handlock, actually, because that might be a huge bonus to Handlock, having that flexibility, because a lot of the time the problem with Handlock is if you're playing too many duplicates of cards, you can get stuck with having 2 Hellfires in your hand doesn't give you any more options.
Yeah, it doesn't
Hellfire
give you any
and
more
Demon
options.
Wrath means you have more kind of flexibility in having them play.
That's true. But the point is that both Warlock cards are good, which is something that we haven't seen in a long time. Like, GVG had a few okay ones, like Dark Bomb and Implosion, and then Nax had nothing.
So Imp Gang Boss has the huge advantage that basically the whole reason that sticking minions are so popular in Hearthstone is because with Mad Scientist, with Haunted Creeper, the worst case scenario is really not that bad, right?
Nax had Void Caller.
With Sludge Belcher, even if it gets run over by a lower threat, it still took up 2 attacks. It still did something.
Yeah.
And it may not win you a game, but it's never going to lose you the game. And the same thing is true of Imp Gang Boss, right? The baseline for its value is really high, and it synergizes with Power Overwhelming and Demon Heart. And
it's the new Harvest Golem, just better.
Yeah, which is good, because Harvest Golem was kind of not good enough.
It was dropping off, yeah.
Yeah, people were dropping it Mech Mage.
And that now and Spider Tank is the only one of the 2 that can compete with the Blackwing tech. So you can't really run Harvest Golem anymore, so that might be the final nail in the coffin for that card. Whereas Imp Gang Boss having 4 health matters a ton.
The other thing about Warlock is that they just don't have, or didn't have, basically the reason that Zoo died is because they didn't have a good response to Haunted Creeper.
Demon Wrath kills it now. So does Imp Gang Boss.
Yeah, Imp Gang Boss matches up so well against the Creeper, because it kills it, and then one of the tokens gets killed by the imp, and the other one is threatened by the gang boss, and
And then you have a
terrible.
2/2, and then you have another 1/1,
And,
and it's so good.
with Zoo, because you rely so heavily on using your own attacks to clear the board, having so much sticky stuff where you have to attack it so many times to clear the board, and then you're not getting any damage on their face, and you start to have problems. But you have to completely clear the board because that's what your deck is about. And that maybe this will be a tool that allows them to do that.
Maybe.
These two cards are extremely powerful.
Yeah, that's true. Now, ending on
Also, the other thing is, I think it might hasten the death of Mountain Giant.
a.
Because so one of the things about Mountain Giant is it's got a bit worse since the advent of piloted Shredder instead of Yeti, which obviously trades a lot better with Mountain Giant.
With Mountain Giant, yeah.
And the problem you can't playing it with Void Caller is a bit clunky. But now you have 3 drops you want to play as well, which means tapping on turn 2 and turn 3 is a bit less of a threat.
Yeah, it's less. It's also less efficient against the new face hunters that have extra burn.
Yeah.
So
On the flip side, and this is quite a sort of important point. Mountain Giant does trade very well against the new big stuff that we've been talking about, like Blackrock Technician, like Hungry Dragon.
it does. But then Twilight Drake is improving. That's worth noting. Twilight Drake is improving because of Dragon synergies. And the best class for Twilight Drake is Warlock.
Yeah.
So Twilight Drake might actually see a decent amount of play because it's basically just a Yeti when you play like 3-drop, 4-drop.
And also, it's worth mentioning that being able to go like, so on, so suppose on turn 7 your opponent has a bunch of minions and a Shredder, a Creeper, and 2 other minions. You can go Hellfire, Demon Wrath, and then play a Volcanic Drake for free.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm really excited for the new Warlock. I think Warlock might be best.
It might be tier 1 again after taking its first leap of absence.
Like so, because the problem Warlock's always had is you can't be a hunter basically.
Yeah.
Because of the way the hero powers match up, and your hero power makes their hero power more relevant, and their hero power makes your hero power worse, and because now you can go sort of Imp Gang Boss, Defender of Argus.
That's very good, actually. Yeah.
Things like that the game against them, and Emperor Thaurissan is obviously amazing in Warlock as well.
Yeah.
Especially with one thing that we didn't point out with Emperor Thaurissan, you can play Jiraxxus and Infernal on the same turn.
Let's be honest, there's a lot of things we didn't point out about Thaurissan.
But yeah, that was really huge, right?
Jiraxxus.
Turn 10, Jiraxxus.
Yeah, that works. I mean, you can also go like
That makes it
Sonarius, Wrath.
But I mean, with the Jiraxxus thing, like, a huge problem with Jiraxxus is it takes so long.
So slow, yeah. That's.
And that's the problem. You can just die, right? But it speeds up by 1 whole turn.
That's true.
Which is.
That's very relevant. All right, so ending on kind of a weirdly low note from what's been a very good set so far. Warrior. Now, I don't think there's much to talk about, but Axe Flinger is the king of BM, and that's about it. He's a 4-mana 2/5. Whenever he takes damage, the enemy hero takes 2 damage. So basically, you hit him and he hits them. So he's the ultimate wombo combo guy, apart from the fact that we've already seen these guys before. Axe Flinger fits in the hilarious category of weird like wombo combo warrior things.
Yeah.
But he's never going to see competitive play. But he's
the problem with Axe Flinger is it doesn't really help the actual wombo combo warrior with the Grim Patron and stuff actually get the combo off.
Yeah, it doesn't help the combo. It just kind of is supposed to be like a secondary combo piece, whereas the Grim Patron actually hits harder. Maybe Axe Flinger
is that 2 attack is unbelievably bad.
You also have Worgen, the Wind Fury Worgen. What's it called? Raging Worgen, which just does flat more damage.
So it's incredibly awful.
It's like not much to talk about, is it?
Sorry, 2 attack.
Yeah, 2 attack's horrible.
So, the difference between 4 and 3 attack isn't that big, that's why Ascension is good. But if you look at something like Arcane Nullifier or Death Lord, 2 attack on a 4-drop is just really grim.
Yeah.
And, aggro warrior, the Axe Flinger might be still good, but Aggro Warrior is just getting worse and
Even
worse.
aggro warrior wouldn't run it.
No, I think it would, right? So
You've
the
got
amount of damage that
Corcrons, you
deal.
have Death Bite, you have like new 4 drops that you just they're more
Okay, no,
likely to
okay.
swing.
So you can think of Corcoran as a 4/3 that deals 4 damage to your opponent's face when you play it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of the time, Axe Flinger is also going to be a 2/5 that deals 4 damage to your opponent's face. So,
The problem is
yes,
when
it
he
doesn't
does
charge.
2.
Yeah, but it's actually quite excellent against other.
I guess you can use it with Death Bite.
Yeah, that's also true. Um,
Okay, so maybe in Face Warrior, a deck that doesn't
but yeah,
exist.
the bigger problem is that Face War is an absolutely terrible deck because it doesn't have a hero power,
Yeah. Alright, so
and that's a quite a large part of Hearthstone. So
yes, the hero powers matter a lot. Yeah, it doesn't have a hero power. And Temper Warrior wouldn't want it, and Control Warrior doesn't want it. It would only be Combo Warrior, really, but that's not even.
the
There's
problem with Combo Warrior, you need to devote more resources to actually making a combo happen.
there's better combos. But anyway, the other Warrior card, which I'm guessing is supposed to be the good one, but it doesn't really get there, is Revenge. 2 mana, rare, deal 1 damage to all minions. If you have 12 or less health, deal 3 damage instead. Now, the problem I have with this, and this is a quote from Mr. Bramerham himself, is that if you're down to 12 life and you need to use this, you're kind of already dead. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a
Um,
bad whirlwind until you're already in kill range against a druid.
yeah, the problem with this is that um, in so many matchups, if you ever get down to this low, you've already pretty much lost.
There is one
Um,
thing it's good against Quartermaster.
it is very good against Quartermaster, but the problem is the Paladin knows it's very good against
So he's
Quartermaster,
just going to
and they
kill you
know
with
that
the
it's very
Quartermaster.
yeah. So the point is that if they don't drop you low enough with Quartermaster that you're already dead, if, they're not going to drop you to 10.
They're
If
just
they
going to
can't drop you to like 4, they're
They're
going to drop
gonna
you to
yeah.
13.
They're gonna drop you to like 13, and then they're gonna play a second quartermaster, and you're gonna die immediately.
The one thing you do know is that you can sort of activate yourself by being on 17 and then hitting something and then.
Yeah, but that's like Mortal Strike thing
Well, I
again.
think so. So there's two questions. One is, do you want to play Whirlwind? And two, if you want to play Whirlwind, are the circumstances where Whirlwind is better less than the circumstances where Revenge is better?
You don't really want to play Whirlwind, and when you do want to play Whirlwind, it's better than Revenge because Revenge is only better than Whirlwind in like what 10% of games probably because the
Yeah,
games
and
where
just
it would be better
combos
you're already
that
dead.
maybe Grim Patron or just things like turn 5 Acolyte of Pain Whirlwind
There's
execute.
enough. You've got Whirlwind, you have Unstable Ghoul, you have Death Bite. That just seems like enough efficient ways of whirlwinding.
Yeah, I mean, so the question is, do you want to play over Whirlwind?
No, I don't think you do.
It's the same as sort of you saw people kind of briefly flirting with the idea of explosive sheep in Warrior.
Or Flame Cannon even, that's a good one. Flame Cannon, it's usually worse than Frostbolt, but every so often it's better, but it does not make it better.
Yeah, so you saw people using explosive sheep in Warrior, right? Because the 3 damage clear was sometimes good, but eventually people kind of figured out that it just wasn't really worth it.
Yeah.
I think it's the same is true of Revenge.
And while it's not a 2 card combo, it's even less reliable.
Yeah,
So, ending on a bit of a low note, but overall, I would actually say that the card set itself, I like the decision to add 2 class cards instead of 1. Because in Naxxramas, they had a weird thing where half the class cards were really good and the other half of the classes got nothing. Paladin,
yeah.
I'm looking at you. But anyway, so,
Okay, so to briefly summarize,
yes.
okay.
Alright, so
Uh,
basically, it
what's
was
what do you think is the best card of the set? And
Thor.
what do you think is what's your favorite, most fun card of the set?
My favorite card in the set is Grim Patron. My favorite actually constructed card in the set is Dragon Consort. And I think the best card in the set is Thorazan.
Yeah, Thorazon is definitely the best card in the set. Well, okay, it's hard to speak in absolutes. Um, uh, I want to say Major Domo Executus is the most fun card, but I also love the flavor of Hungry Dragon. Um,
Oh, that's true, but I mean, I'm gonna Pyroblast people with dwarves.
So isn't your favorite card the Tree on Fire?
No, that's the dumbest card in the set. The design is bad, the card is bad, and I will never see it again. That's how that's gonna work. You know what
Yeah.
happened to the Lumberer? It was an ancient lore that the Druid of the Flame set on fire.
Whoops.
That's what happened to the Lumberer.
Remember, kids, forest fires cost lives.
Oh, jeez. But anyway, I'm pretty happy with the set, to be honest. I think it's going to change the game quite drastically.
Yeah, should we do a little bit talking about the first wing and what to expect from that and stuff?
Yeah, we might as well. So I'm going to go into the boss info now. That's the heroic boss info. Let's see if I can find this. Alright, so it's on this side, I think? Yeah. Alright, so we got 5 wings. The first wing has Grim Patron, Gang Up, Resurrect, and Emperor Thorazine, and then the class cards are Quick Shot and Dragon Breath, also known as Quick Shot.
Yeah, so Dragon's Breath and Gang Up, we can kind of not worry about.
So it's basically Grim Patron, Resurrect, and Quick Shot with Thorazine. Those are the big cards.
One of the problems with Resurrect, by the way, is that if Thorazine leads to there being, say, for example, more combo decks, more handlocks, more combo warriors, more
Resurrect
rogues,
becomes worse.
Priest just becomes worse because it gets annihilated by all of those decks because it can't really pressure them at all.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway,
so that's one thing.
Thorazine's the big card in Wing 1, though.
Yeah, Thorazine and Quick Shot. So if Thorazine leads to there being lots of handlocks and rogues and freeze mages.
You know what, let's just say this. Everyone's going to be playing Thorazine decks in the first week. If you want to get to Legend quickly, play Face Hunter.
Yeah, with Quick Shot and punish all the Thorazines and all the incredibly greedy combo decks.
Yeah, seriously. Just play Hunter. You're going to be at your strongest because Quick Shot's going to be there and very little other stuff is.
But actually, I think Thorazine Freeze Mage might be extremely good.
It might
because
be,
it's so
but
good against Rogue and against Face Hunter.
Well, Face Hunter with Quick Shot I think will beat it. You just play Kazan Mystic.
Oh, I mean, you can't really afford to play Kazan Mystic though because you need to beat.
Well, I think Quick Shot's gonna shift that anyway. But you could figure out a build that's favored against both. I'm pretty sure you could. Because keep in mind that most decks aren't going to have their tools. It's just going to be Quick Shot for a week.
Yeah.
So anyway, so moving down, we've got Second Wing, Druid of the Flame. That's on... What? Why is that there? Okay, so we've got... Oh, okay, that's weird. The class challenges give you some of the class cards.
Yeah, because so for each class...
There's 2 class cards, so there's twice as many, so they have to release some... Alright, yeah, I figured it out now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Druid of the Flame, Blackwing Technician, Imp Gang... I love how Technician shows up before the dragons. Imp Gang Boss. And then we're going to get Axe Flinger and Lava Shock, also known as Zoo Week. And, yeah, because Imp Gang Boss.
We also get Mage Domo Executus, which will also change the meta hugely.
Oh my god. Alright, no. That's gonna be... Yeah, that's gonna be like the week when everyone tries out the Rag Hero thing once.
Like Tempo Storm meta report, like Priest is number 10, Ragnaros is number 1.
Alright, so moving on, we've got week 3. We have Core Rager, Dragon Consort. It's a big one. Dragon Egg. Yeah. And then we've got Rend Blackhand, and the class cards that are on the other things are Twilight Whelp and the Tree on Fire.
Are there any... Oh, of course, Dragon Consort, right?
Yeah, Dragon Consort is the really big
but
one.
The problem is that Dragon Consort comes out before things like Hungry Dragon and...
You've got Alexstrasza.
And
Azure Drake. So you have Alexstrasza, Azure Drake. You can get away with that.
Position. You're like trying to figure out if the Paladin deck is good because you know it's going to be good after everything is released, but you're not sure if it's worth playing. And I think it probably will be.
You just play...
Which is a testament to the power
you play Consorts and Azure Drakes.
Yeah.
Anyway. Moving on to... Is that week 4? Revenge. Flame Waker, not Walker. Hungry Dragon. Fireguard Destroyer. Chromagus and Dark Iron Skullcur and Demon Wrath. That is the week where I am going to be trying out Shaman.
Yeah, that's the week where things start to happen.
Yeah. You get Fireguard Destroyer, we get Chromagus for the... and Dragon Consort will also be out, so that's the week to try Chromagus.
Yeah.
And then we've got Flame Waker, we've got Hungry Dragon, that's when the Dragon's deck starts really turning, and then we've got Demon Wrath coming out as well, with
What's
Dark Iron.
important to note as well is that Blackrock Corruptor, which is one of the main reasons to want to run dragons, is
It's in the last wing, yeah.
So perhaps we'll see some like more minimalist.
Basically just Paladin, right?
Yeah, because you don't need that many dragons to make Dragon Consort really good. You don't have to worry about having enough to activate both of your Dragon Consorts, because if you draw two, you can just use them on each other.
Now, I'm not going over the bosses' like weird cards that they all have. They all have separate cards. Like Chromagus has his like multicolored breath thing. But yeah, that's just random stuff. So, anyway, the last wing is Volcanic Drake, Blackwing Corruptor, Draconoid Destroyer, Draconid Destroyer, Dragonkin Sorcerer, and Nefarian. And then we also get... Oh, that's just funny. Solemn Vigils on its own.
Yeah.
It is very serious. Alright, anyway, so we got Solemn Vigils, the last class challenge. So that's pretty much everything.
So ends the set review.
Yep. So ends the set review, which took about, what, 3.5 hours? Yeah, that seems about right. Anyway, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Yep, and I'm guessing we're going to be doing this like 2 months from now, where we go over the like 2 things we disagreed on, and the stuff from GVG. But
yep, I'm looking forward to it. But we'll also have to go over the incredibly terrible. We'll have to. It will turn out that the Flaming Tree is actually the best card in the game, because there's some incredible combo that we missed.
Yeah.
Or, sort of didn't realize the fact that it
we
also
discovered that if it gets hit by a water elemental, you get a 0 mana Ancient Allure. That'd be so funny if that actually happened. But anyway, so thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback or just want to talk about random cards, put it in the comment section below. Thanks for joining me, Dapper. Baz from Jotto and Dapper, signing off.